Welcome back, everybody. This is Choppadong coming to you again with a Week 3 DFS NFL Rewind. Uh, Taking a look, I guess we knew this week was off to a goofy start based on the Rams and the 49ers game exploding on Thursday night. The other main takeaway to follow out of this week for many of us licking our wounds is all of the road favorites that either struggled or lost. Most of what we saw yesterday was home teams doing well and road favorites underperforming. I think the number was there were 11 road dogs last week, or road favorites, 11 home dogs, and six of them won their games outright, and a couple more beat the spread. I think the only two teams that were on the road that did anything worth a darn were the Chiefs and oh, who am I leaving out? I guess it doesn't. The Falcons. It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. If we scan through the list really, really quick, I mean, Gurley may be a thing. I don't know how much stock we're going to put into Carlos Hyde and those guys. I'm looking for consistent cash performers and to build the rest of my lineups around. I can always spot in some guys here and there. Will I play Carlos Hyde again? In a couple of weeks, probably. Will I play? A Marquise Lee? Will I play? Some of these other guys like Michael Thomas or Adam Thielen, I'm looking for Robbie Anderson. I'm looking for mostly my core plays when I dive through these, but I'm also looking for those little spot performances. Anybody can have a good day. It's the NFL. These are world-class athletes. They can beat a matchup. There can be a broken play. There can be a broken coverage for a play that goes long. And in a lot of cases, that makes the cheap players value right then and there. And that's what increases the volatility to this game of DFS NFL that we love to play and love to follow and honestly love to tease ourselves with. Um, Generally speaking, though, your consistent players, your higher priced players, when they're in good matchups, they perform. Yesterday, they did not. The statistic I heard on the radio locally that was probably the best was in the first 2 weeks of the season, what do we have? 16 games and 16 games, so say 30 something games. The average NFL team or the average NFL game scored about 40 points. That's down compared to what NFL games typically do. However, in last week, week 3, that bounced back in a big way. The average NFL score yesterday was somewhere in the 50s. That's a big jump. We saw a lot of teams go over 30 points on their own. That's a lot. That's a lot of scoring. If you had pieces of it, great. The problem is the pieces that you had probably weren't the Bills. Maybe not a lot of Rams and 49ers unless you stacked up those games. Probably not Jaguars. Probably had a lot of Steelers. They only scored 17 points. Probably had a couple Broncos, 16. Probably didn't have a lot of Saints on the road. Probably had a few Panthers. Didn't have any Vikings, I would imagine. You certainly didn't have multiple pieces of all of these odd ducks. Colts, you may have had a couple of pieces. You probably had more Browns than you had Colts. Nobody had any Jets to speak of. You certainly didn't take the Jets and stack 3 players with the Bears or the Vikings or something like that. So you really missed most of the production. On a week like this, where there were a lot of high scoring, and the average high score of the week is up, yet the cash lines were way down. I'll show you those when I go through some of these contests. The cash lines were way down, where it usually takes 125-ish points on FanDuel to cash in a 50-50. It was only taking 100 yesterday in some cases. 105, and you probably cruised through the cash games, the 50-50s and double ups fairly easily. And that's because the majority of the good players, the obvious players, the best players around the league kind of had bad days. Why? A lot of them were on the road. So this is the kind of stuff we talk about in DFS Army all the time. I'll walk you through Slack here in a little bit too. But this is some of the stuff that we talk about. We coach our players about what to pay attention to, how to react, how to adjust for next week. And the big takeaway this week is home favorites. There were a lot of road favorites last week, and road teams typically don't do as well. You can call it psychological, crowd noise, call it whatever you want, but historically, road favorites, road teams struggle. If you're a huge favorite, a 10-point, 12-point favorite, you probably win the game outright. You might not cover that spread, and that directly affects your fantasy production off of that team if you targeted it for fantasy purposes. So I don't think we really need to spot through a lot of these and pick out some of the outliers and things that kind of went goofy. You probably know based on your own scores what went well, what didn't go well, and we'll probably look ahead to next week and find a few other things. The things that I want to focus on, I want to show you the cash lines. I had a horrible week last week. I did have one lineup do pretty well, but I put in 5 or 6 lineups. Most of them bricked off. I might have gotten back, I think I put out, $40 or something like that, and I think I might have gotten 15 back. Not much for some, guy that's a contributor on a website and supposedly knows what he's talking about. But guess what? Everybody else that supposedly knows what they're talking about this week, most of us crap the sheets because we build around these chalky cores and then infuse different little players here and there. So if you caught the right piece of the off goofy play, you might have done okay and repaired some damage. But if you were hard on those very, very solid, very, very fundamental plays, you did not have a good week. I did produce, like I said, one good lineup. I wanted to show you the 50-50 line for this one. 100 points. Not bad. First place, 130 cruised. 130 barely makes anything. If I go back, most weeks, if I go back and dig through the history here, you can see all the zeros. Brick City. But what I want to show you again is in the triple up tournament, 10th out of 500, 130 points got me 10th out of 500. A top 5% score. That's not so good. Actually, it's a top 2% score. That's not so good. For a 130, it was good this week. 6th place out of 100 in a 50-50. 5th place out of 100 in another 50-50. So we're looking at a top 5, top 6% score-ish going to the tournament here where it still took some wacky plays to win. And these guys did, good for them. 158, 140, 139, good for you. 130, just a solid lineup that actually put some of the decent plays into the same lineup. Ended up 9th. So we're looking at, like I said, top 5% lineup. Maybe in this particular case, top 9% lineup. It was good enough to add another $4 to the till. We will talk more about ladders someday. I want you to go to dfsarmy.com and I want you to go into the NFL tab, NFL strategy articles, go to page 2 and look at the colorful pyramid that is the ladder strategy. This is the only reason I repaired some of the damage that I took last week, is because I put together a lineup that did well enough in high enough upside tournaments to unlock multiplier money. It wasn't going to win any GPP. It wasn't probably going to do anything but min cash in a GPP. But it unlocked nearly triple my investment and brought back a lot of the money off of my overall investment on the week just because that one particular lineup hit across the board. So yay, big deal. Show you the same thing over here on DraftKings. I'll show you how I structure these tournaments or these lineups a little bit, because what I'm trying to do is get the double ups in here with about half. If I put out $6, $7, I want $3 or $4 in double ups. That's going to pay. This really kind of accompanies the article I'm telling you about. That way when they hit, this one hit, this one hit, this one hit. So that released $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 out of a $7 lineup. It's basically paid for. Now it's on house money. How much better does it do? Does it hit the triple up and release some more money? Does it hit the quintuple up, release even more? Does it hit a league or a bigger tournament and release even more and even more? Like this one here. It missed all of those, which is fine. That happens a lot, where you're going to fall somewhere between the top 50% and say the top 30% of the population. Remember the bell curve we talked about last week? If it hits kind of towards just on the other side of that halfway line of that bell curve, but still in the meat of the bell curve, you're not going to do very well. It's just the way it is. It's fine because if you structured your contests right, you paid for yourself and you didn't lose any money either. If you do a little bit better and you eke across a couple of these other lines, then what you're doing is you're either building the ROI of this particular lineup or you're reaching back into some lineups that failed and recouping losses from them, which is what this tends to do. That's why it's a very, very sound bankroll strategy that helps you preserve your bankroll so you can, if we play 10% of our bankroll and we've got $100 and we're playing $10 a week, it preserves that $100 bankroll better so that I can continue to play $10 a week and I don't lose half of it and then next week only get to play $5. Because once I get down to where I only play $5 or $4 or $3, I'm very limited in how I can protect that bankroll and it starts to spiral out of control and it leads to redepositing. And on a good week, if I had a great week and only had $3 in play, what am I going to win? 9, 12 bucks? It's not going to do me a lot of good. If I had that $10 in play and won 30 or 40 bucks, that actually grew my bankroll some. So that's again where the ladder system, if you want to call it that, kind of comes into play. So again, you're probably looking at these players and blah, 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 but I want you to take a look at how it's layered. Double ups mostly, and then a triple up, a quintuple up, and a couple of leagues with some higher upside. I win this one man or $1 235 man contest. I win like 40 bucks. A 235 person contest is inherently winnable. Just have to have a good week. You don't have to have a great week. You just have to have a good week. It is not hard to beat 200 people. It's hard to beat 20,000 people. I preach about that all the time inside the DFS Army as well. So again, if you're the type of person and you need some help or you need some coaching or you need to figure this stuff out, why not hitch your wagon to my train, come over to dfsarmy.com and contemplate becoming a VIP. That's where I do most of my talking and most of my teaching. If I close this stuff out, I mean, there's only so much I can do out on Twitter, guys, or in YouTube. But look at this. Look at this coaching that went on. Another buddy of ours, DFS Donuts, was going, I mean, sure, he was referencing us, but I mean, was going on and on and on for hours this morning, talking with our various members, telling them how he made the money that he made. He had a good week, if you notice here, but he used this as a ladder, used it as the layered contests and hit a bunch of those 100-man leagues. He didn't hit very many GPPs with that. He said, I think he said he got 14 bucks out of the millionaire, the Sunday Million on FanDuel. All right, he min cashed, doubled up. Great. That's not going to turn 80 bucks into 600. You need to leverage that in some smaller contests with some more upside. Again, if you don't know where those are and you need to find out and rearrange what you're doing, you need to come into DFS Army and you need to start talking with us. We're teaching our members this all the time. I have my own little corner here where I do a ton of longer-winded explanations for people, and we do a bunch of talking and lineup reviews and fundamental coaching, making these guys better. I mean, I put out shorter lists of the players that I'm on for the day. This is what we do. There's the ladder article referenced right there. That's the pyramid you're looking for. You can probably also Google DFS ladder system or DFS Army ladder system, and you'll find it. It'll pop up. It's a free article to everybody. If we go in here, we've got our own leader. Kevin does the same thing. He goes right on through all of his coaching with all of the people that are asking him questions. We have our own main NFL room that I showed you before that does the same thing. So we're always talking NFL, NHL, NBA, NASCAR, baseball still going on, MMA when the slate is active, PGA. We've got all the sports covered. We've got content across the site everywhere. What you need to do is you need to plug in and you need to start asking questions, getting feedback for what it is that you do. Anyway, I don't know about you, but that was week 3. It was a shit show. I'm going to burn the tape. I don't need to go back and wonder why I didn't play, LaShawn McCoy when the Buffalo Broncos were in town, and he wasn't a great play, or why I wasn't stacking Drew Brees on the road with the Panthers when I went back 7 years of history to 2007 or 10 years with the Panthers, and when the New Orleans Saints were in Carolina, Brees either threw a pick or took 2 or 3 sacks in every game. Except yesterday, guess what? That's an outlier performance. Burn the tape. So while you run off to burn the tape, I'm going to remind you one more time to go check dfsarmy.com. I will throw the link in the description of this video. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscription, and also follow me on Twitter at Choppodong, CHOPPODONG, and we can connect in whatever ways that you feel that you need help. Give us a try, ask me questions, If you like what you hear and you want more details, you're going to have to become a VIP inside the DFS Army. That's just where we spend most of our time because it's what we're honestly that's what we're here to do is we're here to help. And although we love giving away information for free, it's not the most expedient or the most efficient use of our time. So we have a lot of tools and a lot of content and an optimizer and a whole bunch of just outstanding advice to give to make people better DFS players, perhaps most of which is bankroll management and the ladder system. So come on in, give us a check, and you'll like what you see, I promise. Guys, take care. Have a good week 4, and we'll be back when we're back.